right, y'all. This is Homeroom with Smooth, episode number 126. Go for it.
You know why you're laughing? I'm just serious.
You've been
I know
laughing since we got here. I don't know.
because this camera
He
lens
is
is too
having a
good.
good day.
Yes,
Camera
it was
lens.
a great day.
This camera lens is
Apparently
too good. That's what it is. You're right. You're right. This camera lens is
apparently
too good.
so.
Here, let me downgrade myself. Just there you go.
Why?
Oh, that angle. That's your angle right there.
See, there you go, right here. It's like see.
Oh my god. Oh my god. Mm. Bro, we waiting on you, bro.
Oh, I thought you were still introducing us. Like,
No, so listen. I got
Look,
with me.
Larry.
Okay, let me get serious. I got with me Mariah. How you doing today?
I'm doing great.
That's fantastic. Frankie, how you doing today?
I'm doing great. Just chilling here. Just in your face, interface.
Shar, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good. Doing good.
That's wonderful. That is wonderful. All right, Frankie, what is the topic for today? What we talking about?
Topic for today. Well, I was just, I was scrolling through the internet, talking to my friends, of across the nation, and then, not even across the nation, just across the globe, and a thought got me. So I was like, and I was talking to them, and we were talking about the education system, to America and other places. So then it was just I was kind of shocked to learn, because we hear different things, that how in depth Germany goes with their education about the Holocaust, and they even go as far as talking all about it, kind of what they did, and they even take them to the sites, sites of concentration camps and everything that went into that atrocity. So it got me wondering, because here in America, we know about slavery, but we really don't go in depth with slavery at all until you get to the collegiate level. So I was wondering, are we doing ourselves a disservice by not learning about our past and our roots? And what are your guys' opinions? Do you think we should go more in depth about it?
Okay, so whoops, I did not hit the button. I'm sorry. There we go. So listen, bro. I feel like honestly, we could do a lot better. Cause I feel like as a man that grew up in the South, black man that grew up in the South, I feel like we do, especially Arkansas, does it a complete disservice. Like they just took us to a random field and said, "Yo, this used to be a plantation, and there's some rinky-dink farm down there." I said, "Yo, what the fuck is this? Like, what is this?" I said, "Oh, this is a plantation." Then my grandma showed me, "Oh yeah, this the this where we used to sharecrop." I said, "What?" I said, "That is that close, Grandma? You sharecrop, ma'am?" Grandma?
Yeah. My school, because I went to like a predominantly white school, and they only taught Black history, in February. And they took us to some spot where they recorded, what's that movie, Gone with the Wind? It was like some of the scenes in Gone with the Wind was recorded at this place in Arkansas, and it had like a cotton field. They showed us like the cotton gin, and I was just like, why?
Right.
I'm the only Black kid here. I was like, why am I here? I was so uncomfortable. So, well, when I researched about critical race theory, there was some, obviously, our counterparts don't agree with critical race theory, and they feel like if you're going to teach it, you have to teach both sides. You have to teach the oppressor side and the oppressed side, both opinions, and why they chose to view the situation in that way. And I was like, what is it that you want to say? Like, you want to justify it? Like, how can you justify it?
Exactly. Shar?
So I'm sorry, y'all. I'm here, but can you reframe what you asked, Alan?
Do you think we should talk about slavery in schools pretty much at the high school, junior high level in more in depth, or do you think it's fine the way it is?
I mean, I mean, I can answer this. I don't really know how to answer this question. The reason I say that is because um, when I grew up in the South too, so I grew up in Memphis, and I guess at the time I did not realize you know what you don't know, right? You know what you know, and you don't know what you don't know. So when I was in school, I felt like I was pretty much getting the needed education in that department. Now, as I'm older now, I realize there's a lot of stuff they didn't cover, but I wouldn't have known better back then anyway. So, you know, like if I only know what I'm being taught, I don't necessarily um, know how. I don't know what is missing to it to improve it, right? Like I only know but what I was taught, so I don't even know what's the missing pieces that need to be included or what did they need to enhance. I do know that the school that I went to, they were predominantly white as well, but they did a good job of during Black History Month. Um, I didn't feel like you know, left out or anything like that, or like they didn't focus. Of course, they focus on the same 10 inspirational Black people during
Oh yeah,
that
of
time,
course.
but I guess what I'm trying to say is I never felt like my history wasn't covered enough. Now these kids are way far more advanced than we were back then, so enhancing the amount of education they're offering for as you go on with time, absolutely. But I think for my specific time frame, it was okay for where we were at.
Well,
Yeah.
I grew up out west. Been in schools were predominantly white and everything else. But and predominantly Hispanic. I kind of what Shar said. You don't know, and you don't know what you don't know until you find it out. Unfortunately, I do think it's no matter where you're at, it seems like we've all got the Cliff Notes version of it. It's like, oh, there was slavery. It was bad. This is what they did for it. We went to war. We got rid of it. And now we're fighting for equal rights. Unfortunately, there's so much more to it than that and how they justified it. And I think because, and it happens if you're in a primarily, a primarily white school, that's that's predominant race or even other stuff. Because if you're just saying this is what this is what happened, this is what happened, this is wrong, we fixed it, move on. They don't understand the symbolism of a lot of stuff, and to even, and I think it's always good to learn to an extent, and the oppressor side as well, to understand why they did it, to understand, but at least, and let their oppressors know as well too, because there's people out here that they don't see how the Confederate flag could be a horrible symbol, because we cliff noted over it, and it is what it is. We don't understand the separation of church and state, because that actually has a lot to do with slavery, because a lot of they justified slavery by saying, hey, these people aren't Christians, so they're not Christian, so guess what, they could be slaves.
Right, but then they taught them the Bible by force.
No, I'm just saying for American history.
No, I know.
Yeah. So and like and that's when we go back and forth with that too. So I think even some of the oppressors, and they don't see why things are that big of a deal, because they also don't learn it. So it's not even something for Black History Month. Like I don't think slavery should just be relegated to Black History Month. I think it should be a part of entrance in the curriculum, because and it sucks to say, we learn a lot more about the Holocaust and everything else in middle school, and then again in high school, than we ever know about slavery. And that's a shame, because one is U.S. history that's still affecting everybody, no matter what race you are today. And that's what people don't understand, and that's why, and all that leads into segregation. And it's funny because people, they talk about segregation, and that's glossed over too, and that stemmed from slavery, and then they act like segregation happened 200 years ago.
And it was
Right.
only 50. It was only like
Right.
50
Like
some years
there
ago.
are people that literally lived in segregation.
Yeah, so
Right.
like, you need to get over it, and and until a couple years ago, it was like, bitch, that was my fucking grandmother. So you
Right.
can't tell me that you're acting like it was like my ancestor, like on a freaking ship. I'm like, no, that was
No.
how they got here on slavery.
Right.
Slavery
I
was
feel
still
all
going
that
on.
energy.
But segregation is, guess what? My grandparents, and to a lesser extent, because my mom was born in '68, so she felt the ripples of
The
that too.
effects. Yeah.
I have a question, though, because as you're talking, you were talking about slavery and segregation, which are two different eras. So do you feel like they didn't do a good job of covering both? Because I will tell you, growing up in Memphis, Tennessee, we talked all damn day about some segregation and some whites only and black only sinks, and the four kids that went to the church and were learned a lot. Like we learned a lot about segregation, but slavery itself, looking back, I don't see too much on that. But would you say both you were lacking in?
Well,
I think so.
They're lacking in, and yeah, we do a better job at segregation. But the main thing is we don't say how one happened because of the other. And that's the thing, because we learn about slavery. Then it's like slavery is bad. We fixed it. Then there's segregation, but we don't go in depths of slavery, the slave trade, what it was made for, and how segregation was a byproduct of that as well too. And a lot of stuff. The thing is with slavery, it was the main thing, because we're dealing with it today with under the table workers. It's free labor, and that's what people wanted.
Yeah.
And that's how they justified it.
I have my brain. Sorry.
Oh,
so when I was reading and I was like, researching about critical race theory, one of the things, one of the things critical race theory they teach you about how racism has affected some of the regulations and laws we have in America, and it also touches on how racism, like segregation and slavery, how it's affected our education system, labor, things of that nature, which I think is very important, because I was reading this book and it was telling, like, the beginning, I couldn't even finish it because it infuriated me so much. And I didn't even realize how propaganda had an effect on the Black people's self-esteem. But during slavery, in order for them to justify slavery, because obviously you could see they were human, right? White people can obviously see that Black people are human, but the way that they justified it was that, obviously everyone knows that they reduced us down to less than a person, like lower than an animal.
Yes.
And we know this, right? We know it by ear, but did you see, like, the images that they had printed out during that time? It was ridiculous.
Yeah.
And I was and reading that book, it did infuriate me. So I would worry that if we did teach it, I know that other people, our counterparts, worry that it will create a divide, and they know that they can't survive that divide, because then it will affect the economy.
I kind of agree with that, but I think sometimes that divide is there. But I guess, like we said, we don't want, or you could say they don't want the divide, because the people in power will be crippled by it. So I definitely agree with that. But some of it's they don't want. I lost my thought. I want to say they don't want to. They don't want something that shows that, hey, this is how bad people could be, because it also says that, hey, and I'm gonna say this the best way I can, so I don't want to offend anybody out there, but there's a lot of people saying, it started with Hitler, started with a bunch of stuff like that. The white race is the pinnacle of civilization. So, and I don't believe that. I don't think everybody believes that, but I'm just saying that's how it seems like the laws and everything were brought into context, because they're the majority. People like what they like, blah blah blah. That this is what it is. If you show it, I think the longer you focus on that. Sharp first.
No. I ain't said a thing.
No, I'm saying sharp first is good. So I think something that throws chinks in that armor that could unite people. And I think that's kind of that they don't want to see that, which is they try to gloss it over. and
But they're
segregation.
not ashamed of their history. Like America
I,
is not ashamed
I
of its
no,
history
the thing is,
like
I think
Germany is.
I think I think the problem is America is ashamed of its history, and more than
Yes.
Germany, which is why a
Yes.
lot of stuff
They
they
cover up
glossed
a lot of
over.
things.
And
Yeah.
then even like
Okay.
segregation now, it's not as shown as much as it was because they are ashamed of their history and they try
I
to
don't feel
bury
like
it.
they are.
Oh,
Mhm.
okay.
Wait,
So
wait,
look, to look at
I'm
so to look
listening.
at the time gap, right? To look at the time gap on it, right? So you got
Uh-huh.
Holocaust was like what, 5 years max, right? Five
Yeah.
max.
Yeah, I
It's about
believe
five
so.
max.
5 or
For
7.
them to acknowledge slavery, they have to acknowledge for at least 400 years they was on some bullshit. At least
Yeah.
400.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
America does not want to acknowledge that, because then they have to turn around and re-acknowledge the Native Americans. They have to acknowledge Black people. They have to acknowledge the Hispanic Americans. They have to acknowledge the Asian Americans they
don't
took
forget
advantage
women.
of. They don't want to acknowledge
Don't
any
don't,
of the minorities they
don't
took
forget
advantage
women.
of.
Don't forget women.
However,
Don't forget, you have to acknowledge women
Yeah.
too because they did the women dirty as
oh,
as well, and that's why the Salem witch trials, which is another reason why we have separation of church and state.
yeah. They were doing women dirty. They did tie like rocks to their feet, and if
But
she swims
but
up or something,
but I
and
also let's let Char go. But I will say one thing: the
huh?
thing
I
with
haven't we even went.
okay, okay, doctor, go ahead, because
Yeah, I ain't said a word
Char
this
wants to
whole
go.
time.
You just said a lot, though.
Huh?
You just said a lot.
No, I did not. I had 2 whole points.
Anyway,
I ain't even said nothing.
there were two things I wanted to say as you all were talking.
Wow. Okay, go ahead.
Why are you like this today? Bring back the other Smooth. I don't know who this Smooth is. He don't like today or something. I don't know what's going on today.
You're drinking
Anyway,
that southern soda with real
so
soda.
the
With
first
real
point I
sugar.
wanted to make was that I may have because I grew up in the city where Martin Luther King Jr. was shot. So it may have also had a difference in what I was taught because we like pretty much every year in school we went and visited the hotel he was shot at every year. Like I know that whole hotel from the whole museum like the back of my hand because we went so much.
Mhm.
And so having access to the place where there's so much history probably is why they couldn't really cover it up.
Okay.
Two, I do think that there was something specific you all said earlier. I don't know exactly what it was, but I do think that schools should address, like you said, with the Holocaust. We know the reason that I can't remember the correct terminology, but the Jews are like separate. They were separated. I think it's called the slums. Well, there is history as to why the ghettos were created. It just goes back to slavery, and I really think that that needs to be something. I don't know if that is considered high school level or college level or what, but that should definitely be included in like race theory classes because that's really where all of that stems back to. Like the hoods and the ghettos stems from slavery
Yeah, but the thing
and
is
separating a class of a race of people into let's throw them into these neighborhoods and give them less access to the things that other neighborhoods have. Like it's form of slavery.
yeah, but
They
it
were
shouldn't even be
literally
race theory though.
projects.
Yeah, but the thing is, it shouldn't be race history. Should just be history because it's a part of history, and
I
it's
mean, I
it's,
agree.
Yeah.
no, and
Even like
and
the
it's a part of
Tuskegee.
American history too, and we all have a block. Like in eighth grade, that's American history, and like that's super glossed over. But
Yeah.
I do think the other thing too, like we said about Germany, they're not as ashamed of it because they're able to justify it with with the sanctions that happened to them because of World War One. To say that, hey, we were pushed to this corner to do something to get some of our stuff back, whether it's our economy, our military might, or like that too, because the sanctions that they got from World War One, it was overboard. So I think so. Even though they're saying we were this happened and we were wrong, we were pushed in the corner. So that's why that's maybe part of the reason why they're not as ashamed of the history as we are. Because American history, we just did it because we believe in excess.
Yeah.
I just had like a thought. Forgive me if I don't say this properly, but do you think that they don't want to teach it because they're still implementing this division in different ways.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
slavery is still being exhibited in the
Mm-hmm.
in prisons. You still have segregations with the school because they divide us with school zoning. Like you still like we still have division. That's why I feel like they're not ashamed. But I don't
I would.
know.
Yeah, my answer to that is yes, 100% yes.
No,
Yeah.
no, I think, like I said, I think they are ashamed, and they have stuff over there just to control access of information, because that's just
Mhm.
what you do. You control access of information. Because the thing about history is that it's been brought out a lot. The winner tells the story,
Right. Where
and
history repeats itself.
that's what it comes down to. And like Shar said, in her community, you can't hide certain things, so you have to go deal with it. And and it's easy to be like, oh hey, you know, it's Martin Luther King got shot trying to do this, and this is right for civil rights, and it goes into so many other different things as well too. So they're able, so they're able to kind of rally around that and make it a bigger thing. Slavery really targeted
Yeah.
one
But
group,
yeah,
which
but
is
then they changed the narrative also because like
yeah.
they teach you Martin Luther King was shot, but I forget the man's name that he was shot by, but Martin Luther King was actually killed by the government. Like, and Coretta Scott took it to trial back in like I want to say 99, but I'm not sure, and
Yeah,
she
yeah.
won.
Yeah.
So it was just like they don't teach you about how they really executed our
Mhm.
goodness, I can't think what I'm
Well,
trying
no,
to
I said
say.
Our leaders.
because
There you go.
history is told by the winners, and
Right.
that's the main thing that
Yeah.
we've learned.
And that's why we're
Yeah.
trying to enforce critical race theory, which is why
Yeah.
they won't allow it into our public education school system
Well,
because
just depends
it
on
would
what state
change the
you're in.
narrative.
Depends
Huh?
True. Because
depends on
it's
what state
definitely
you're
not
in.
being taught in Arkansas. When I was
Oh,
in
yeah.
school, I had a teacher because you could tell she was racist. She was like, "Oh, she was like the slaves weren't even treated that bad." And I was sitting in class and I was just like, and I was thinking out of nowhere, I was like, if there was 20 some slaves on a plantation and there was only one like slave owner, why did they just revolt? And I said that out loud, and she was like, "Why would you say something like that?" I was like. That's the most logical thing that has been said the entire class, and you upset with me? I was like,
Facts.
yeah, I would have been Nat Turner during
That,
slavery. I'm
that,
pretty sure my
Well,
past life I was
but that
killed.
mindset that you have that you had right there, that's why they don't
Mhm.
teach Nat Turner in school. And
Right.
that's
well,
why they don't teach. That's why
The
they skim
freedom
over
writer.
they skim over Malcolm
Mhm.
X as well, because they
Mhm.
don't want you to actually stand up
Yeah.
for yourself and actually fight for your own rights. They
well,
don't
Right.
want you to do that. They want you
it's
to
not.
be pacified and think, oh, we're gonna do a march. Oh, we're gonna get active on social media. Active on social
Right.
Well, that's
media.
now
And
because
Because
that's
that's
gonna
the
do
one thing that they
something.
can
We're gonna put
control.
pressure on them to make them want to do something. No, the only way you can affect people is punching them in the face or hurting their pocketbook. That's it.
Right.
Them the one. If you're not causing physical harm or financial harm, people aren't going to make a difference. Like
And they didn't
I'm
even.
sorry for whoever's listening. If that hurts your feelings, fuck you. Like that's the reality of how life is. If you're not
Yeah, that's
physically
true.
harming someone or financially, people don't move. Corporations don't move. Straight up. I promise you, if you were like threatening the CEO with violence, he probably cave to whatever demands the fans wanted. He
Hmm.
probably would, just straight up. That's just how it works. However, America continuously, as far as teaching education goes, they give you the watered down version. They don't give you the true facts and all the facts because they don't want you to actually actively involve, like actively become involved and feel encouraged to be involved in the systemic change that people are trying to push forward. A lot of times they just find ways to make us like happy.
Hmm.
That's the literally the best way I can say it. They find ways to make us happy. Like, oh, we gave you
To
this.
distract
Why aren't you
us.
happy? Like, Kamala is VP. Why aren't you happy? Like, that's
Yeah.
literally what they do. They do things like that. Obama's president. Why aren't you happy? Like,
Yeah.
yeah,
you
Yeah. The
know,
reason your teacher reacted that way, which goes back to one Smooth's point, is because she was afraid that like you were way too smart, right? They know how smart Black people are. That's what it is. They don't want us to really, really speak out and really be as smart as we are. So when your light bulb went off, it scared her. Like, oh no, why would you
Well,
say? What are you
that
talking about? Yeah,
no
because
that
that's too
that
much.
and
That's too much intelligence there.
well, it's not even about too much intelligence. It's that they don't want to have an actual conversation, and that's the one thing because and I'll put it this way too because we think about it all the time, right? Because like if there were this many slave owners and this many slaves, why didn't they do this? But then, and I'll tie it into something else too, because we had 9/11. There was this many hijackers and that many people. Why didn't they do anything? And that's just and that's not just a Black person thing. That's just a human nature thing of
nature
that.
response,
Yeah,
right?
nature response.
To have,
but that's the thing. And your teacher did not want to have that conversation. And
because
and that just shows that one, your teacher was trash.
because then you have to explain what type of mindset did these slaves have to where they were too fearful to revolt, because you got to think about it, they came from Africa, so they knew how to hunt, they knew how to fight, they knew how to protect themselves. You had to do some serious psychological damage to a person to not stand up for themselves.
That and no one wants to be the first person to die. That's just what it comes down to.
So that was exactly what I was going to say. Nobody wants to die, like to be that what is that
but
sacrifice
they were killing themselves before they were jumping off ship. And the reason why they stopped is because they started teaching them the Bible, and they started teaching them that killing themselves, you'll go to hell. And so then they that installed the fear in them. And then they gave them hope. Well, this isn't, if I don't have a good life here on earth, then I'll have, the best life in heaven. So let me just deal with this while I'm here, and then just live my best life in heaven. Like,
that and you have to remember too that, and a lot of them, because it wasn't even the fact that they were teaching them religion too as well. It was the fact that they're making it so they physically could not jump off, and then it's a huge effect, because then they're like, oh crap, now we're doing this, and there's a reason why, like in the Dominican, there's a reason why there's Black people over there. It's because they chained them up. The slaves weren't moving. They were so out of shape. People weren't buying them. So they stopped in the Dominican to plump them up and make them regular before they finished their journey and brought them to the U.S. So, because they did certain things, so they physically could not do that. And then, of course, the people who just didn't want to die either. So,
right.
And like I said, no one wants to be a sacrifice. Because like we kind of say it, everybody has a plan until they're punched in the mouth.
Right.
Yep.
And no one wants to get punched, so no one wants to be the first one to get hit. No one wants to be the first one to be killed. A lot of people don't want to sacrifice themselves.
Man.
Yep.
They did a lot of damage to us, though, like a lot.
But I guess to go off of that, that's like my reason of why and we kind of hear it now too, which I think is the main reason why they want to stop, impede Black history and the negative of it with America, because if you open that door, that's Pandora's box. That opens up everything else. Because then it opens up the Japanese and Chinese we put in internment camps during World War II out here. It opens up how we treated women, and then the Salem witch trials isn't a funny thing. And okay, cool, we're witches. It's like, no, we freaking killed women, because they were getting too independent. It opens up the floodgates to everything, and I think that's just that's how it actually happened.
What's up? Welcome.
So I think that's what I realized, especially after, like I say, especially after taking a lot of college history, and then plus kind of what Shar hit it on the head too, especially anywhere west of the Mississippi.
Yeah.
It's harder and harder to find areas that were affected by it as much. Too. So even though a lot of our government started from over there, and you can even say that it's a horrible way to say it, but their traditions made their way out west.
Yeah.
As well, it affected. It physically didn't permeate out here, so that's why they're able to kind of shut that access off as well.
Yeah.
I feel that.
Get your
Okay,
case.
so Dr. DL has joined us. What's up, my man?
What's up, good people? How y'all doing tonight?
Really
We
good.
we
Good.
good. We good. We good. We good. So what's your thoughts on so the initial question was like how do you think slavery could be what was it? Slavery could be taught better, or like how slavery is actually taught in school, like how we can improve upon it, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when we think about K through 12 education, one of the first things we got to do to teach about enslavement of African people is to
Mhm.
begin before they were enslaved, right? And so that's the like when we teach it on the college level, we don't begin enslavement once they end the Americas. So the conversation has to begin about what was going on in Africa before the transatlantic slave trade, or even the
Mhm.
trans-Saharan slave trade, which we don't talk a lot about um, in the United States, or nearly enough. Then the other thing that we got to talk about, and this is going to ruffle a lot of feathers, is that we have to talk about the creation of these isms because they happen at the same time. So you get Bell Hooks. She called it the matrix of domination, and I remixed it into the interlocking systems of oppression. And these interlocking systems of oppressions are these 5 isms, and so and they don't matter which order you go in. But I'm gonna always begin with racism. But so you get racism, you get capitalism, you get nationalism, you
Mhm.
get colonialism, and then the oldest ism is sexism. And so
Right.
you get all 5 of these isms to happen at the same time. So they become interlocking. And so for us to really understand enslavement, we got to now really understand what colonialism is. We got to understand what nationalism is. We got to understand racism. We got to understand sexism, and we got to understand the other ism. I don't know if I said colonialism or nationalism already, but we got to understand all 5 of those
Mhm.
because those are the reasons why we get enslavement, right? The enslavement begins off the coast of Africa. The transatlantic slave trade begins off the coast of Africa 50 years before Columbus sails the ocean blue. And so
Mhm.
what was the conditions to make the need for enslavement at that time? We also got to understand world history a little bit better because the Iberian Peninsula had been colonized by Muslims for about 600 years or so prior to Columbus sailing the ocean blue. And so that's playing a factor on why they particularly pinpointed people of African descent to be enslaved, right? And that there was this marker, and we have to teach it K through 12. We have to teach it for us to understand the economic drive, but we also got to understand that the arguments for enslavement happened after they were already enslaving people. And so what that means is that when they started coming up with reasons in the 18th and 19th century, it was to look back on what they were doing in the 15th century, in the 16th century, right? And so that's where we have to begin for us to actually understand the systemic and systematic portions of slavery, but also how you have this elite that doesn't really give a damn about race. They don't care about any of those isms, except for really
Mhm.
capitalism.
Facts.
And so that is a captive motive. And then and the reason why you got to begin at before is that it also sets us up to understand a few things. That there was no African existed on the planet until they make it to the Americas.
Mm-hmm.
There's no Africans. Africans as a concept we call it syncretism and creolization. And so Africans in the Americas go through these 2 processes, and you're not learning these things in K through 12. So you don't get these things
Mhm.
once you make it to college. And for us to understand, like, because that then shifts, because now what that does is, what's our relationship as a people to capitalism? What's our relationship to sexism? What's our relationship to nationalism? And if we really want to end racism, we have to peel back all those other isms because they became interlocking. And so if we really want to teach K through 12 people about enslavement, we have to begin there, and prior to anybody ever being enslaved. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I'm following you. I'm following you. That made a lot of sense, actually.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
did.
yeah. You made a whole lot of sense.
Speak it.
Right. Um, I think
Well,
I think that, yeah. I think
I
the
have a question. So, I'm sorry, we can talk over. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
yeah. So I think the only real question I have to you guys is like, so we know that we ourselves, we know the history, but we're grown, we're adults,
Right.
right? So looking at this next generation, right, and how they have the access to internet and all that, how are we going to make sure they get the proper resources, not just the resources that they give them, but the proper resources to actually educate themselves on actually what they came from and what they are? Because the way that they're fighting against quote unquote critical race theory, which is actually what they're calling critical race theory, is actually just teaching history the way that you're supposed to teach history. It's
Right.
not I think they want a more biased slant towards themselves to like kind of like water it down to make themselves look good and feel good. But they
Mm-hmm.
actually don't look good or feel good in any of these circumstances, none of them.
Mm-hmm.
From the moment that they got here,
America was
it was
established.
not good. There was nothing good going on, nothing good. Like, and that's just from my old history textbook. All I
Mm-hmm.
remember is they brought us over here. They gave the Indians smallpox. They made them march all the way to Oklahoma. You know what I'm saying? Killed off nearly all of them. You know what I'm saying? They gave them blankets that had smallpox in there. Then they turned around. They kept enslaving us. Then they fought each other, you know what I'm saying, for free labor, you know what I'm saying, to keep enslaving us. But they don't want that to be a reality. They don't want to talk about us being oppressed. They don't want to talk about segregation, you know what I'm saying. And if they do want to talk about segregation, well, some black people were doing all right. Um, some black people were doing good. Hey, don't y'all remember old girl? She was making honey and selling all these other things, and she was doing all right. She was the richest black woman at the time.
Right.
And they want to talk about her and big her, but I'm like, that's not
Madam
how this
C.J.
works.
Walker.
You know what I'm saying? What you say? What you saying? That was
Madam C.J. Walker, and she was. Are you
Madam
talking
C.J.
about the
Walker. Yes,
one
ma'am. Yes.
with the perms? And they don't even want to talk
Yeah.
about that and how they
No, they don't want
affected
to
our
talk
self
about that at
image.
all. You know what I'm saying? And then they skip over Malcolm X, but they talk about Martin Luther King because they want
Right.
you to now just, hey, just please just go march in the street. Please.
Right. But
Please.
knowing Martin Luther King, you have to talk about Malcolm X because he is the reason why some of the laws got approved. But
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. They don't want to talk about the Black Panthers in depth. They just want to talk about, oh, they
Yeah.
walked around with guns. They don't want to
And
talk
then
about them in depth and the programs that they instituted. Like I believe,
they're
if I
the
remember
reason for
correctly, they're
SNAP.
the ones that started that like free lunch, like actually giving people
Hmm.
free lunch and all that other things like that.
They're the reason for Planned Parenthood. They're the reason for SNAPs, food stamps. They're the reason for some of the programs that we have when you start school and you give the children food. They had their own like elementary schools, and they, instead of like implementing you know how we have,
Mm-hmm.
you get SAC where you send the kids to detention, they had like
Mm-hmm.
yoga. Like they
Yeah.
were legit. So
Yeah.
They did
Yeah.
breakfast. They did the breakfast, bringing the
mhm.
fact that if you start the day hungry, you weren't going to be successful throughout the day or whatnot. And so,
Mm-hmm.
but I think to get to part of your question, so there's a couple of things I want to say before everybody else jumps in because I'm late to the party. critical race theory, they know exactly what they're doing because critical race theory has nothing to do with history and the writing of history. Critical race theory is a legal theory, and that's all it is. And when you study law is a series of case law, and so case law is what we would consider history. But it's in of itself, critical race theory has nothing to do with history. But the reason why they're making it about history is because there's this thing we call the meta narrative, right? And so there's been this meta narrative that the United States wanted to create. And in creating this meta narrative, they created good guys and villains. And when I teach African-American history, or I write a book about African-American history, the only people that's reading that book in 1920 with Carter G. Woodson are going to be African-Americans when he's talking about the miseducation of Negro, right? Only people that's going to be reading that is African-Americans. And so we're not being incorporated into this meta narrative. But in the 20th century, 21st century, African-Americans are started being put into this meta narrative. And by placing these people of a darker hue stories into that meta narrative, it muddies up who the good guys are and who the villains are. And so they are really concerned with it because they want to make history about good guys and bad guys. The other trap they want you to buy into with history is the concept of progress.
Yeah.
And that's a very dangerous concept. And so they're attacking these different ways for you to know about what came before, because if you know what came before, you can do something different about it. And so going into the 21st century, and to part of your question, what we need to be doing now is for us to be like Jewish people and say never to forget. And that's the thing that we've been trying to do. We've been told that our history is so painful that we need to forget slavery. We need to forget Jim Crow. We need to forget the moment, yesterday. And we need to be, forgiving and all these other kind of things. And so it becomes a perfect storm of the ideal of progress and trying to get Black people to stay in their place and not want more, because what you need to tell your kid is that, so I have a 7-year-old. And so my 7-year-old, I'm not going to make it to quote unquote freedom, but I'm supposed to pass the baton to him to where he can get us a little bit closer to humanness, right? And then he would take the baton and give it to his son or daughter and keep on going. But every time the buck is being passed. And so that's part of the progress piece. And the reason why they're taking it out of the schools is to make us workers, right? One of the things that we don't talk about if we actually understand enslavement is that it never stopped, right? Enslavement never stopped. In the North, they did this thing called gradual emancipation. And what gradual emancipation said was that your child was going to remain enslaved until they reached a certain age, okay? And the reason why the Northeast decided to get rid of slavery was not because of some altruistic reasoning. It was because how capitalism works. And so watch this. They can make more money off of you free than they can enslave, because you become consumers. And that consumption enslaves you, because now you have to stay at your work and all these other kind of things. And so when we look at the role of education in the United States that's created by whites was never to free you or to move you up economically. It was to teach you how to work in factories. It was teaching you how to be a citizen. It was trying to teach you these kinds of concepts, but never about critical thinking or freedom. And that history represents the ability to disrupt these narratives, especially these meta narratives, right? There was the UN just released a report that the United States is supposed to be the longest lasting democracy, and that January 6th ended it. But think about when they say that, when the UN says that this was the longest lasting democracy, that means that they were okay with your enslavement, that they were okay with your Jim Crow. Because for African Americans, even to this day, we're still not free. And so how do we get our young people to want it? It goes to what happened today with this leak of the Roe versus Wade, and it's going to be struck down. And the way that they're striking it down, Brown versus the Board of Education is now up for it, because what they're saying is that because the Constitution is not covering it, the states get to decide, which means when the states get to decide, you're going to have some place like Georgia or Tennessee, Mississippi, who then could pass laws to get rid of gay marriage, to get rid of, to reinstitute segregation, because the Constitution doesn't even guarantee you education, right? And so it surely doesn't guarantee you that Black people and white people, Africans and Europeans have to be mixed together. And so we are going to be moving towards a new form of oppression that we need to figure out what the name of it will be. But we're going to see in our lifetime what happened after Reconstruction in our lifetime, right? What we call the nadir period in African American history. And so that oppression is going to make us have to learn our history. Because it's going to be the first time since the so-called civil rights movement ended that we're going to know that there's a foot on our neck that's beating us back, because it's going to become legal again. And so I'll leave it to that. But that. I think it's going to be real easy for the next generation, because it's going to be palatable again. It's going to be something that they can see and touch and not have to discern it for themselves.
Man, you said something with that last part. Oh, God. Does anybody that last part? I was like, dang, he right.
Yeah,
I'll go. I think that if we're relying on schools to improve, I think there's a long way to go. To answer you asked how our kids can have better access to it, or what we can do on our part, correct? Yeah, I think if we're relying on the schools to do a better job, I'm not saying that. I don't know. I don't know what the schools look like. I don't have kids right now, so but there may be some schools that are improving their curriculums and taking the steps towards, incorporating the information that a lot of schools at least didn't do back in my day. But I do think that I personally have seen a shift in the Black community sharing our own history with each other. And, like, for instance, when I was growing up, sometimes my punishment was writing a book report on a influential Black person. That's what my mom made me do. So that kind of stuff. Also, like, the kids today, they have so much, like you said, they have access to so much. I will log on TikTok and get a Black history lesson just from logging on TikTok, right? Like, I think they have so much access to so many things that we didn't have access to, that if they're not getting it in school, they are getting it other ways. Unlike us, we didn't have access to, I don't know about y'all, but I had dial-up internet. And they can just literally type in they can ask Siri and they'll get the answer. So I do think that they do just have access in general in other forms that we didn't. So yeah, that's my answer.
Go ahead.
I worry that the new generation of kids really won't care. And the reason why I say that is because we live in a society that says, oh, that happened so long ago. Why are y'all still hurt about that? Or we live, you know what I'm saying? They teach us, like, they shame Black Lives Matter. Like, I don't feel like this generation, and not with Gen Zs, I don't think they will truly value it. And I don't think that they will care. And I don't think that they would notice, like you said, that it's going to happen again. I don't think they will notice. You have a lot of distractions. Sorry, I'm done.
No. Are you for sure done?
Yeah, I think so.
I wasn't trying to cut you off. I wasn't trying to cut you off. I thought you were literally done.
Yeah, I'm done.
I'm so sorry. So anyway, I feel like with the newer generation, as well as what she said, I feel like there's no sense of urgency. I think they feel like everything is good as is, and I don't think we, as the older generation, because we got it good, didn't teach them the sense of urgency of, hey, this can be bad. You know what I'm saying? We don't bring the like family structure. Okay, and I'm gonna see if it's just me. How many family reunions do y'all know have happened in like the last like couple of years? Because I don't see that many people coming together the way they used to. You
I
know
mean,
what I'm
Well, I
saying?
mean,
my
my
family
family
does.
never
Yeah, my family.
We
my
just went to
family
the
never got
cabins and
along.
those
We
are.
didn't have family reunions. My
Okay,
family didn't get along, so I never had the luxury of knowing what that's like.
okay. So you both have okay.
But I will say, for your point, social media has kind of killed the purpose of that.
Right, because you
Ooh,
feel like you're connected to people because you see what they're doing online. So you don't, some people don't even call shit. They're like, oh, I know Johnny's fine.
Yeah,
He just had a kid. And you
because
think,
yeah, because I will definitely say that and I'm thinking about it too. Like besides like my cousin, like my one cousin, I don't have really the drive to try to bring everybody together. So I do feel like after, and I did notice a big shift in my family structure after my grandma passed away.
yeah,
mm-hmm.
Because of that. But I do
Yeah,
know that's even my mom's generation, because they're kind of getting into it. My generation grew up with the internet, and I know and then I know my god brother, and then my other cousin. I talk to her all on freaking, and she won't talk to me until she sees something. She's like, oh, I've noticed you've been doing this and this, and she's in Australia. And she feels connected and everything knows what's going on. So I will say I do believe social media kind of
mhm,
stopped the drive for people to have family reunions because you don't need it to catch up.
yeah.
And that's coming
Yeah,
from my family. We had family reunions every 2 years.
Hmm.
facts.
Yeah, I was reading something. It was saying that people's social interactions have changed since the 1970s, and the only thing that has changed since then was the internet. So,
Well,
Yeah.
I
Yeah, but
mean,
yeah,
yeah, I mean, also in the 1970s, they were also having family dinner on every day. It wasn't just every Sunday. Like it was a thing. You had to sit down at the table and eat together. So you start getting away from that kind of stuff in general.
yeah. So it's kind of like I feel like we're being conditioned. Like even like I've noticed like my attention span has shortened because I'm on TikTok. TikTok's only like 7 seconds, so my attention span is being changed to only function after 7 seconds. It's bad. I'm trying to get out of it, but
Mhm.
yeah, I feel like we are changing. So I
So
don't think they'll value it.
so yeah, like even on that piece where you talked about like TikTok, like I even with myself, like I don't actually watch TikToks. The only thing I actually do is post. I only post. I don't
Mhm.
watch anything. I only post. I just
I
go to my
learned so much
page.
on
I
TikTok.
post my videos and I walk away. And I walk away just because of how TikTok is set up. Like the moment I went for the for you, what is it, the for you
FYP,
page? Right.
yeah, the
You
FYP
gotta have
page.
that.
Yeah, the for you page, and I scrolled briefly. I said, no, 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 no. This is not good. I said the way mine was set up was bad. I said
Yeah,
this
but
is not good for my
yeah,
mental
but
health.
you have to set it up. You have to filter it the way to what you want to see. So if you don't get on there and you don't do anything, you're gonna see trash. Like mine is set up to where I see
well,
motivational
no,
No,
messages.
no,
but
but
the thing is,
it's not
TikTok's
even that.
made for
Like
that way because they want you to watch, and then what keeps your attention, that's what it keeps on pumping towards you. So like,
yes.
so like,
Yeah,
say,
so
So
I filtered my
yeah,
my feed. Like my personal TikTok has turned into a Google page and a YouTube page. Like I get on there and I learn stuff. Like I don't even have to
so
really.
Yeah,
even with that, it's still trash because when you look at the quality of information that you're getting, it's not really that good. Like I can't even validate these people and
Information
the
I get.
information that they're giving me.
I've
Like
had
at
some
least
good
at least with
information.
at least with my YouTube, like I have all my YouTube recommendations are long form videos that people that go in depth with like stuff that's complicated or that's more nuanced, and they actually spent the time. Like these people only drop like 2-3 videos a month,
It's
and it's
funny.
literally like I'm getting educated on like different things that happen in like anyway. It doesn't matter.
No,
See,
it's
it's just
funny.
different
It's funny
things.
because I actually saw a
So the
video
thing, huh?
about I saw a video about that, talking about the difference between YouTube and TikTok, and then because since the information, it's going to be better because not anybody can make a 6-second video. More people are. It takes a lot harder for someone to go to make an in-depth video. But go ahead.
Yes, exactly. Yes, like those people are making qualitative content. Like nobody's gonna sit there and spend 20 minutes making a video, like have a video that's 20 minutes, and people and a bunch of people actually watch it. That's actually just trash. Nobody's gonna sit there and watch a video that's actually trash. It's not gonna end up recommended to you. It is gonna
Have you
end up
seen the
being. It's
trash
gonna
movies
float.
that are out that are an hour and a half? Are you sure about that?
No. It's gonna
Yeah.
float. No,
And
it's
I was
gonna
thinking
float
about the
into
trash
obscurity. No, it's gonna float into
men.
obscurity. It's not gonna get recommended to you. If you're watching quality content, at least for me, as far as my YouTube
I
is
get what you're
concerned.
saying, but all I'm saying personally, I have gotten a lot of educational content outside of from TikTok. I have learned Black history facts. I have learned stuff I never knew existed. Like I have learned so much. I have learned political stuff on there. I have learned so much on TikTok. But like I said, to each
It
his own.
No,
is
but I
TikTok
think
can be informative.
no, I think because you
No,
guys are looking because Smooth is looking for things more in depth.
yeah,
And I think that's what
yes,
he's saying. So for him, he wants stuff that's more in depth, which is why he doesn't like TikTok because it gives you a Cliff Notes version, but it's harder to check back and go in there and find reasons why. And I'm just saying that because I'm kind of like that person too, and because I see the value in both because there's stuff that I've seen on TikTok or Instagram Reels, that it's like, oh, that's cool, but for me, it makes me want to go find out more about it because like the only stuff honestly that I'm like, and I learned technology stuff too, like what was it, iPhone shortcuts, blah 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 blah, and it's useful. But I'm saying for Smooth's palette, he wants something because he wants to know all the intricate nuts and bolts. So
yes.
and
Because
he finds more value into that.
I want to walk away with actual knowledge. Like to walk away with just like facts or things that I can just spurt off, like that's cool. But to actually have knowledge to where I can actually like make it my own and then apply wisdom to it, like to actually like do that with TikToks, like it's a lot. Like it's a lot you're gonna have to consume, and you're gonna have to get into the weeds and actually like find some video that actually explains the other part and explains the other part to where you have a full rail-rounded perspective. Like my thing is like if you watch some TikToks, right, about Black history, right? How like to actually have a conversation with somebody to where you're gonna actually like be able to combat them on Black history to where they're like a critical race theory, just you know what I'm saying, to combat them on the theory itself. Like a lot of videos don't go in depth. Like those 3-minute videos that TikTok has, people don't watch those. Like everybody watches the 60-second and the 15 or anything that's less than 60. As soon as you go past that 60 mark, all those videos are watch list. All of them.
Yeah.
All of them.
Yeah.
You
Because
can
our attention
literally just
span
search the
is
algorithm.
short.
All of them are watch list. Why? Because people's attention span is trained to 60 seconds or less on TikTok.
So how does that tie into what we were just talking about? Because I think
So
we
how
need
that
to.
ties into what we were talking about is for Black history stuff, like I want an in-depth, I want a whole perspective. And I'm talking about for teaching kids, like for them to give them actual informative content that actually fully in depth is going to go longer than 60 seconds, and to actually sit your child down and have them conditioned to actually sit there and go, okay, I'm gathering all this knowledge. And then when they're done gathering all of this knowledge, to sit down and process it by themselves and say, this is what I learned from this. This is how I feel about this. And this is my perspective on this. A lot of people don't even have an opinion. All they do is parrot shit out. They don't have an opinion. That's just
Dr.
fact.
Dio has something to say.
Go ahead.
Mm-hmm.
So, and some of it is dealing with what we talked about earlier, but we're getting at a couple of things, and looking at this generation that's growing up not only with the internet but growing up with social media. And one of the things that I talk about with my own students is the difference between information versus wisdom. And so we got a generation that's growing up that has information at their fingertips, but they don't have the wisdom to be able to go through it. Because here's what the question is, because social media has created the rise of the expert. And so the question now that I want to ask you all, which then would mean that younger people will be able to have to answer this question as well, is what's the criteria that you have for a content creator to speak to something that you can quote unquote learn from, right? So what's that criteria? Because all of a sudden, how well I say something or how emphatic or passionate or performative I am in doing it, the more reliable it becomes, because here's where that wisdom will come in at, where if I heard something on TikTok, will I then go Google it myself? Or will I then say, well, because I heard it on on TikTok, it's
fact.
Right?
Mhm.
And so we're asking young people to do something that I don't think we even do, because I watch TikTok, but I just got a fellowship, and so I don't have to work for 15 months after Thursday. So I won't have to go back to work until August of 2023. And so I'm going to roll out.
That's crazy. That's dope.
It's great, right?
Yeah.
I got to go do research. But one of the things I'm going to do is I'm going to roll out TikTok to where I'm teaching African-American history, but I'm going to be in conversation with other people because I want to correct. There's a whole lot of misinformation. I didn't realize how many people were African-American historians until I got on social media. And most of it is wrong, right? A lot of it is wrong. And I stay in people's like only certain people will respond back, because this comedian, he was talking about the 3/5 clause, right? And how bad the 3/5 clause was. And I'm like, it really wasn't. Actually, we would still be enslaved if the 3/5 clause did not exist, because it would have gave more power to the South, because you would have had people being counted as a whole, which was you got more Congress and electoral college votes of enslaved people, because they would have been counted as a whole who could not vote, right? And because they never talked of, like, somebody told you, well, you was counted as 3/5 of a person. Well, that was a good goddamn thing, because that was the reason why it's called the 3/5 compromise, is because people in the North didn't want African Americans to be counted at all, because it gave political power to a people that could never vote. And so now on a federal level, it was going to impact Congress and it was going to impact the presidency. So my point is, I ate the dude and then told him, the 3/5 clause, like, here's where your argument, it has some validity to it, but by adding this piece to it, you're taking away from it. He never responded. And so nobody saw my correction or what the 3/5 clause was really about. So like I said, my question is, what is your criteria for you to say, okay, this content creator knows enough or should know enough for me to then listen to? Because like I said, we're asking K through 12 people to be able to do that. And I don't think us over 20, right? I'm just going to make us all over 20.
Right.
And the reason to go through age, right? Like all of us over 20, for how we're discerning that. And so because we're asking something of social media that they're going to have their entire life, that we signed up for, type of thing. And so how do we decide who's an expert?
I'll answer that, because I am a content creator. I'm a social media manager on a social media agency. So the reason I'm on TikTok 24/7 is because I'm looking for content to use, to create. I'm getting ideas. I'm looking at what's hot, looking at what people are up to. Honestly, it's authenticity. So you can tell who the people are that just want to go viral versus the people who really are their authentic selves, that are on there, that have a real and true brand. So when you're your real and true self, people pick up on that, and those accounts go the furthest. Those are the ones that you are building a trust with your community, to where they don't feel like they need to. Now, I'm not saying that I'm a Google person, so I will Google everything. But those are the people that are forming trust with their audience, to the point where they don't have to be questioned or wonder, like, what if anything they're saying is true. So that is what I use, and that is what I also recommend to my clients that I manage. Like, be yourself, be authentic, and be real, and that will take you far.
I think it's kind of unfortunately it's like any other media. You have to go. You have to see the person's track record. Of what they're going into things. I like the example you put is you're trying to go ahead and have a conversation with the person to correct them or just even to have an opinion. Because because you could use it with any news form, any blog, anything. I mean, right now, I've been talking. I've been there's one site. It's called Inside the Magic, and they put a story out there that was just so misleading. It was appalling. And so one that hit its credibility. So now I'm not even following them for any sources too. And then two, you have to see how they respond to criticism as well too. Because if a person they make a mistake and then they go and correct it, take it down, do something with it to acknowledge it, to make the mistake, to put correct information up, that brings that trust and that validation that says that they're a trustworthy source. But also as well is usually when people put out information, I use it as a conversation starter. So I'm going to go ahead and look up things as well to add to the conversation, to find out things that I don't know and to see if it's true. Because I know Smooth knows this because every time he's like, oh, he throws out an article, I'm like, I need to go look it up. And even though I trust Smooth and it's coming from Smooth too, I'm looking for other stuff with it so I could go ahead and add to it. And I think that's what that's what we need to do because even when you're consuming content, you have to find out the reason why you're consuming it for, and then add and be able to add to it, even if it's just through conversation through the comment section to your friends when you pass it along somewhere else. Because if you're not doing it for that, then you're not really trusting the person that's giving you the information.
Brian, go ahead. Then I'll go.
I mean, it's honestly based off of is this information something that I'm interested in? How much of the information that I'm receiving do I actually know? How passionate, like you said, how passionate are they? How confident are they, relaying the information? And do they speak well? That is how I verify it. And then I'll go and I'll do my due diligence, just research. Because again, like I said, is this something that I'm interested in? But if it's not, then I'll just graze right past it.
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay, so for me, I think I'm just a little, I may be just different. Like for me, I look at what you do. Like for me, because I'm used to more longer form content, so I look at what you do in your description box. Right? Do you refer me to your source material so I can go read it myself? If you do not refer me to what you read, I'm looking at you different. You know what I'm saying? There's a YouTube page I follow for years, and every single time he dropped every single link. I mean, without fail, all he does is drop all the links. Even to this day, he drops all the links. And so I can go in. I've even got topics for this podcast from his show. And because I read the source material and I said, oh, I got an angle that I want to attack this from. You know what I'm saying? From reading the source material. And it was from his show. Yeah. Like it's a like, well, forget his show for a second. Just for a second. Like the way that he does and his integrity, because even if he messes up the next episode or the episode after that, he will come on there and say, hey, I have a correction for episode whatever. He will tell you the direct correction, what he did wrong and what was wrong about it. You know what I'm saying? Hey, I didn't actually look into this all the way. Me and my team, we apologize. You know what I'm saying? Off rip, that's the start of the next episode. That to me is integrity. I look for integrity in my people. I don't care how you say it, what you do. I look for your integrity. Will you go back and correct yourself? And how will you present the new information to people? I look for integrity. That's my number one thing.
I also want to add that most of the content creators that I follow, they will literally tell you, if you want to know if this is real, go look it up. And that will also let you know that they know their shit and they know that they're not trying to sell you any bullshit. They're not trying to lie. They know that what they're saying is real and you can find it if you want to.
So, yeah, because I think about someone like Umar Johnson, who consistently and constantly is incorrect in putting out factual information, and then the logic from his analysis is off base, even with the made up facts that he might use, and that is being circulated. And so if social media can be a resource for K through 12 people, because I especially when we're talking about the African American history, because for me to answer that question, if they make it the thing too simple, then I know they don't have a understanding of what's going on. Because that's how complex, like African American history in of itself, the field is an interpretive field. Right? That's all history, that we have the facts and we interpret those facts. And so if we make it too simple, from A to B to C, without having to say a whole bunch of words and trying to explain the how to get to, so it would be like when you think about the capital letter A, lowercase a, 1, and just keep on going down like that. If you're not having to do that, then I know you know what the hell you're talking about. But that's me with all this education being able to do it. How can we get K through 12 people who know little to nothing, and this is supposed to be the alternative?
Well, I never said that social media should be the alternative for to help K through 12 learn Black history.
Well, when we were talking about it, right, like that, we can't trust the K through 12 system to teach African American history.
Yeah, but I didn't even get the chance to answer for alternative, because for me, social media is not the alternative for that one, especially from K through 5. Because even right now, I have a 12-year-old right now, and the only thing he wants to look up on YouTube is roller coasters, Nerf guns, and Jurassic World.
Right.
So that's why I would never do that. I'm saying, because my alternative is we have to learn it. We have to learn it ourselves. Also, that too, what are the means that we have to do it. So, because we have to learn ourselves to go ahead and teach them as well too. And then I think we said it on Smooth's very first Alpha podcast. It's we need to go in there into the school system and go ahead and say, hey, these are things that we want to learn. These are things that we think it's important, and show why it's important to us and to the country and to the country as well too. Because the problem is because I've been to different PTA meetings, I've been to after school programs, I've been to like that too, and there's really not enough representation. And if there's not enough representation, we also need to find out why, because we can make a change to do it, and it won't be immediate. And that's the thing too, is that anything that we're doing to try to fix the education system is not going to be immediate. It's going to take some time. And that's where we fill in the gaps as well too. And that's where we go, we need to learn the facts, and it's up to, sometimes it might be up to us to take those higher level classes. So whether it's to go ahead and push the next generation of teachers, so they say, hey, this is important, or if it's to push it to our kids, so they understand what's going on, and as authentic and as real as it could be, to push it. Because I honestly think, especially from K through 8, social media is definitely not the alternative to get your history information.
So although I agree with you, I think it's also very unrealistic to recognize the fact that these kids are on social media a lot. So not necessarily replacing how they're retaining information, but back to Dr. Dio's point, if they're going to be consuming this information, we're focusing on what ways can they also get their information from there. I do think it starts with the parents. I do think it starts at home. I do think that we eventually need to hire a new generation of teachers, but we have a long way to go. And until that happens, we have to do some things now. In the meantime,
I'm saying with now it's on us, because the thing is, because his point is too, because with social media, it is so hit or miss. And the problem is, if you're saying, hey, go look at this is a hit, then they think everything's a hit, when it could not be. So, and the thing is, he's saying and I'm not saying us in this conversation, people in general do not fact check. Because
I get what you're saying, but I feel like there's also a bad stigma with, maybe because I work in social media, maybe I'm biased, but I think there's just a bad stigma in general attached to social media, and there are positive ways to use it
No,
and positive
there
ways to
definitely is.
consume information.
We're not
And so I
saying.
get the point. No. What I'm saying is I get the direction that Dr. DL was going with his questions. I get the direction he was going in.
So
Yeah.
I feel like, honestly, one, I feel like this newer generation and most people in general, just tell me if I'm wrong. Look at the number of reactions and the view count. If the number of reactions and the view count is there, they think it's right. Just off rip. If they turn around and read the comments and then they find out it's false, fine. But if the numerous number of comments is just agreeing with this person, they're gonna fall into that same echo chamber, because most of social media is an echo chamber. Like all of it's literally set up to reinforce your current beliefs that you have.
I
Yeah, and
If
I'm not
you
saying
have
those
those
people don't
beliefs,
exist.
it literally, the algorithm literally just reinforces your own beliefs. It doesn't encourage you to learn more. It reinforces your own beliefs, because by listening your own beliefs, you will watch more of that content. You will stay on the platform more. So it reinforces more in your belief. That was in the Facebook papers that came out. That was in the thing that the op-ed that came out about Twitter. Like, it's all the social media sites, they're literally geared up that way. Even YouTube, like, all of this stuff is geared up that way. And it's like, how do you combat it? And it starts at home. At home, you have to be educated yourself. Yeah, Dr.
I mean,
Ariel,
I agree with
go ahead.
that. Yes.
So I want to bring up two things. And so going back to the larger question about what we can do. And so just listening to you all debate about this, why not for us to create a 21st century green book to where we certify content creators as like that they have the information, and so if they don't get our stamp,
Yeah.
right, and we'll have all the criteria about what is expected for you to stay within this this listing of factual, informative content creators. I think that would be one thing. But then to the larger question, I don't know if y'all are familiar with freedom schools, but that's one of the things we will need in this 21st century, because K through 12, if it's controlled by the government and government regulations and all that, and that's outside of African Americans' control, especially as we see a Supreme Court that they're literally allowing for voting rights to diminish because they're letting gerrymandered places in Alabama and Georgia and Florida to go forward, and saying we'll allow for an illegal election to happen in the midterms and for them to take it up after the midterms, which means that you're going to get people who should not be elected in this midterm to be elected, and for other people not to be able to return to seats. So you're losing people automatically based on that gerrymandering. But for us to create a system outside of what the government is can control, and so that's what those freedom schools came in at. And so then the question then becomes, because I know I can't teach K through 12 for a reason, right? Because I hit people, I cuss, I do a whole bunch of things, right? Like, don't be in my class and sit there near me. I'm gonna bop you upside your head. You say something stupid, right? And so, but I would want to volunteer my service. So then, to the question then, would you be willing to teach your expertise for free within one of these freedom schools to help raise that bar for us to be able to teach, right? And for it to go back to this, community piece, because one of the things that, like, my mom said that the older people would say would be, I'm gonna hope you out. And instead of I'm gonna help you out, they said I'm gonna hope you out, right? And how powerful is that? Using hope instead of help. And so how many of us are actually, through the things that we're doing, providing hope?
Yeah.
Right? And so if we then say we're going to, on Saturdays, we're going to send our kid to these freedom schools where they'll learn about history and math and English and being creative, a journalist, all these different aspects, and giving them voice for them. And then the other thing that I wrote down when we were talking about earlier, we need to learn how to navigate racism and race. We all have learned how to navigate race based on what we've gone through. Right? Not on it, like not that any of us are experts, but the only thing that we've learned is how we, like one of my good friends just told me he's basically a conservative. The only reason that stops him from voting that way is because he don't want to experience racism. Right, like but he got to that conclusion because how he navigated race. Right?
Oh my God.
As we learn how to navigate race, and guess what? We're kids when we learn how to navigate race. And we never question the things that we think is going to get us to that other side as kids once we become adults. And so we then teach this ideology without really thinking about it. And so these freedom schools can be dealing with how do we actually navigate this concept called race without becoming damaged or having to go through something to get to it. And so so my solution would be like freedom schools that we can control, where we can have create the curriculum, and it's about the trust in the people that's participating in it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that ties back into my point in saying is I don't think social media overall is a bad place. Like you just have to, exactly like you're saying, we have to curate it the way you want it to be created and take control. Is all I'm saying. I'm not saying that.
Oh,
it may not come across that way.
Yeah, and I wasn't saying like all social media is bad. I was just saying right now, like I said, it's for certain things for someone that young to try to learn like that too. It's a crapshoot.
I'm not leaving
to rely on that for that, which is what I was saying. Like I didn't agree with using social media to go ahead and try to help young minds, because I was saying like today I had it was a roller coaster that stopped on the lift hill because someone took out their phone. The media said it malfunctioned on the lift and almost crushed somebody. And I'm like, what the? And if you look at the video of it, it was nothing like that, because they put stuff out to click on it. And kind of what Smooth was saying, I don't think reactions and playthroughs validate if someone's right or wrong, but I think it does validate if someone's going to watch it or not.
Yeah.
Because of the algorithm.
I know some great content creators who are out here teaching some factual, amazing stuff, and I come across them all the time on not just TikTok, on Instagram and other places. And you all may not know who they are, but I know some. They have a huge following. They record. I think they now have 5-minute videos on TikTok. People watch all their stuff. It's just a matter of giving them more shine.
But that's what I was saying too. Like when earlier I said it's based on their reputation and how often they do it, because
that's true.
So that's why, like, especially like if I see something from a creator I've never seen before and I hear a fact from it, I'm gonna go look it up and figure out like that too. If it's someone that they've been putting out facts for a while and they're always right and they're able to have a conversation, I'm less likely to go ahead and be like, let me go check to make sure this person's right. And I think like you said, once you curate your list like that, you're fine. But like I said, with my little man, he's 12, and I can't trust him to curate a list because he'll tell me something about a Nerf gun, which I know it's freaking fake, and it's a freaking Nerf gun.
Right.
So I'm not gonna trust them. Like, hey, this is about Hispanic history because someone's upset because they didn't get something at the street corner. That's just So and that's why that's based from my experience of looking at stuff on not even just social media, just the media. Right. And him and everything that he gets to, and because a lot of stuff it's based on playthroughs and reactions because they're able to sell more ads, and it's all based on consumerism, and capitalism. So because everybody was trying to get money, so they're more likely to put out bad stuff because it gets them more money.
Yeah, because even so I watched the video recently, and I put it up on YouTube where there was a son of a woman. So this is a black man. He's the son of a black woman or whatever. So his mom called the police on him because he was holding her hostage in her room and he had assaulted her, right? So the police she calls the police on him, just to make this really short. And he then knocks, like, gives the police officer a concussion, and then when they have him on the ground, he's biting the police officer's hand or whatever, and you know what I'm saying, they end up shooting him. Like, he has the police officer's hand in his mouth when they shoot him, right? He's biting his finger off. So the question, the thing is, like, it looks really bad and it sounds really bad as I said it, but once I watched it, I said, yo, this is not what they made it to be on Instagram. Like, the clip I seen on Instagram versus the full length body cam video, and I seen all three angles, I said, yo, this is not the same thing. And I'm saying, if I was just somebody on Instagram, I'd be all for this kid's cause. However, the moment I went and watched the full thing, I said, first of all, I'm like, he beat on his mom. I'm like, you were staying at your mom's place for free. Like, when you get all the facts in total, I'm like, what were you doing? You know what I'm saying? But I don't think we enforce our on the younger generation to actually, like, take the extra steps to go, okay, why are people feeling this way? And to actually objectively take your feelings, put them to the side, and actually sit there and uncomfortably watch something. You know what I'm saying? And I just happen to watch it live on YouTube. However, for most people, they're not going to sit there and watch it in general. They're just going to take the piece of information they got, and they're going to be upset too. They're going to start a movement. That kid has a whole movement behind him, and then there's a lot of big name people, and you wonder why they're not behind it. And you're like, oh, they don't support black people. They only support these big events or whatever. No, the kid was wrong. At the end of the day, I can firmly say he was wrong. He was wrong. Did he deserve to die? Absolutely not. But he was wrong. There was no point in the video where he was right. He was absolutely wrong the entire time. It just so happens the consequences of his wrong actions happen to be him dying. You know what I'm saying? Like, I and because it put me in a weird space. You know what I'm saying? Where it's like, okay, I support black men. I support black people not being assaulted by the police. I support all these things, Black Lives Matter, all that stuff. But then he's literally assaulting his mother to the point where she, in this climate, called the police on him, knowing the outcome. Knowing the outcome. She knows that. And you know she probably sat there because it's like, I think when this happens, it's like 2, 3 a.m. She already been through it all night. You know what I'm saying? And she finally does that. But nobody's going to sit there and do that research to actually find out what actually happened, when the police got called, when they actually showed up, how long everything took. Nobody's going to actually sit there and do that. You know what I'm saying? They're just going to look at what's on Instagram, what's on Twitter, what's on these sites. And I said that to say that I feel like for your children, you have to literally you have to curate for them. You know what I'm saying? You have to monitor them. You have to actually parent your child. There's no solution for actually actively parenting your children. You cannot allow the algorithm, you know what I'm saying, to actually make them an actual good playlist. You have to actually parent your children, because the moment you just let social media do its thing, social media is going to do its thing, and you're going to be on some extremity instead of actually being a well balanced individual and actually knowing the facts of each situation that presents itself to you. And I think that's where we are as a society. A lot of people don't know the facts of any of the situations that's presented to them. All they do is regurgitate facts that they seen from their favorite news source. So promote yourself, Dr. DL. Promote yourself.
So you can find me on social media at DL_PhD. That's Twitter, Instagram, and soon to be TikTok. Hopefully, I will be rolling out stuff on TikTok to deal with African American history and teaching it the right way.
Okay. Shar?
Free Spirited Shar. That's where you can find me. Right there.
Okay.
That's all I got.
Frankie?
I'm tired, y'all. I'm sorry.
You can find me at TypeX Thrills on Instagram and on Facebook and on YouTube and Twitter. Twitter, I'm usually, trying to stop the spread of misinformation. And on, on YouTube, I'm just trying to tell you about rides. And on Instagram, I'm taking photos and being mad at the algorithm because Instagram does not like photos anymore. It's all about reels.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
Mhm.
You're right. You can find me on Instagram at LVE2_. And that's it.
All right, we all well. This is episode 126 of the Homeroom Smooth podcast. Thank y'all for watching. We're out. Bye. Have a good one. Enjoy your lives.